Ryan Aho here, and the one and only Bert Lehman, hosts of the One to Go Show, bringing you episode 179 of A Blast to the Past, where we get a chance to turn back time every single week and kind of look back at some of the drivers of yesteryear that, particularly in episode 179, we'll talk about drivers of that number, 79, of course, and kind of look back at some of their accomplishments, some fun stories, maybe get somebody on here like we have today. We have Dale Carlson on here today, a driver that now his son's racing in the late models, but I remember growing up as a kid, I actually sent Kevin a picture that I took myself as a little kid with a camera that, believe it or not, was not digital back in the day, and sent that over to Kevin. I don't know where that was, maybe Hibbing probably back in the day, but we're going to visit a little bit and talk a little bit about his career, and then we're going to get into some other 79s, got a little trivia at the end. But before we get into the show, a little shout out to Impact Health Sharing. So if you're self-employed, if you pay for your employees' insurance, if you have a family and you're just sick of paying too much for health care, shoot me a call or a text, 218-969-1380, and we might be able to save you money on your health care, and I've been able to save people a lot of money. So let's get to it. So Dale Carlson, how have you been, man?
Pretty good. Living a good life, I guess.
Well, let me ask you this. It's a little quiet, so hopefully if the viewers are listening, they might have to turn it up. So Kevin, can you see if maybe you got that thing dialed in about as loud as it goes? You got it on speaker, or what do you got it on?
I got it on speaker, yep.
Okay. So hopefully, Bert, can you hear him pretty good on your end?
Yes, I can hear both of them.
Okay, great. So first things first, Dale, I mean, you get to see Kevin race now. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you miss turning laps?
Oh, I miss it all right. It's just that, I had my good turns at it, and it was time to retire, I guess.
Yeah, you hung with it a lot longer than I did. I had about 20 some years in, and I quit at a younger age than you did. I probably should have kept racing a little bit longer, but I was kind of chatting with Kevin back and forth, and he gave me kind of a couple talking points here. But Bert, I remember I talked about all the years, in the early 80s, and he was one of the drivers that would always be at all the tracks that I went to, Superior, Hibbing. You'd be up at Hibbing once in a while. We go up to the Riverview Raceway in Thunder Bay to the Invitational. Out of all those big invitationals, in your later years, Dale, in late models, do you have one that stuck out? Do you have some? What was your favorite invitational at the end of the year?
Well, really, when Thunder Bay was running, that was probably it. Yeah.
Man, I got to be honest with you. That's on the top of my list too. I was 7 or 8. My dad would be like, "No kids in the pits. You got to go hang on the grandstands." Here I am in Thunder Bay with all them, crazy Canadians up there by myself, right? I got to ask you, I have a lot of memories that I probably shouldn't have from them. What memories? And Kevin, did you go up there with your dad back in the day up to Riverview?
Yeah, we used to go. I got up there for one or two of the invitationals, but we used to go every Wednesday. He used to race up there every Wednesday, and I went with him just about every Wednesday, and he raced there regularly during the season. That was interesting to go up there and come race and then come back.
Do you remember how scary that road was? I was 7. I was about ready to cry going up. Was it 61 up there on that really windy road on the North Shore? We had a trailer that whipped back and forth. I thought we were going to fly right off the road.
Yeah, that was something else. That road was it's a lot better now. I mean, they made it a little bit better anywhere through the Silver Cliffs and stuff, but yeah, it was.
That Silver Cliff was, I don't know. I had a buddy of mine that I used to meet. He was running a cement truck back and forth from Canada. Anyway, he took and went off that Silver Cliff and landed down by, yes.
And lived.
I couldn't believe it.
I mean, one
So
thing
every
to go
time,
off
every
that,
time
but
I went, I
yeah, one thing to go off that, but to live is just unbelievably incredible.
yeah, like he said, it was one of those things where it was a good thing he didn't have his seatbelt hooked up. It was because the cab got cut in half, and he didn't have it on, so he landed on the floor when they hit the beach down there. Luckily, he lived through it all, though. Every time I went by there, I was just like, "That's insane."
Wow. Yeah, no kidding. I was super little at the time, and I was scared to death driving down that road. What memories do you have from up in Thunder Bay, or any of the invitationals around that time? And then we'll go back a little bit from, Kevin sent me some notes, but around them early 80s, some of them invitationals, what are some of your best memories?
I don't know. Probably being able to compete with the guys that were winning races everywhere. Because especially in Thunder Bay, excuse me, Thunder Bay, you'd get the cream of the cream of the crop come up there at the end of the year. Everybody from J.J. Smith to, I don't know, there was a guy from Milwaukee that came up there and ran all the time. I can't remember what his name was. Dohan, yeah.
Ted Dohan.
Okay,
I mean, those guys, if you could run with them, you were feeling pretty good about yourself. Let's put it that way.
Well, for sure. Bert was kind of nodding there. So we'll let Bert chime in. You've heard that name before?
Oh, Ted Dolan, yeah. He raced at Hills Corners, and then him and his two sons came up and raced at Channel Speedway for a while in the 1990s. And J.J. Smith, I mean, obviously he's a well-known driver in Eastern Wisconsin. Actually, 1979 was the last year he won a track championship at Channel Speedway. Staying with the 79 theme.
There you go. So Dale, Kevin mentioned that your first car you had with a relative, Jim Christian, of course, that whole family, they're heavily involved with racing for years. Talk a little bit about that first car. Was that kind of the same roll cages as today, or a little bit different back then?
Well, let's put it this way. Me and Jim, we didn't have any idea what we were doing when we built that thing. And we got some pipe. We were just happy to get some material. Didn't cost anything, and it was 2.5-inch water pipe, I think it was.
Water pipe, yeah, the threads are still on it.
2.5.
Which is, water pipe is bigger, yeah.
But Hagley, I can't remember his first name. He was a safety guy at Proctor for many years. Anyway, I remember he leaned his head inside there and looked at that thing, and he says, "Well, one thing, looks like you don't have to worry about getting hurt in this car."
Yeah, a little bit heavier. And then he said, back in the day, people didn't have all this technology and stuff. He talked about, how did you time your engines back with that car?
Oh, yeah. Well, we'd take it for a trip down the road and loosen up the distributor. And Jim, most of the time, I took my turn too, but I guess we'd get her up to speed and turn the distributor till it went faster and lock it down.
Would he be sitting right in the car, or where was he sitting doing that?
Sitting on the motor.
sitting on the motor. So Bert, get this, no timing light, right? Literally just sitting on the motor, driving down the dirt road, distributor loose, getting it up to race speed, turning the distributor and tightening it up, and that's how they set the timing in their engine.
Yep.
Can you imagine a cop today seeing you do that?
They probably have some words.
That is
We're
it.
pretty good.
I wish I had video of that. That'd be cool.
Yeah, nobody got hurt, thank God.
No kidding. So he said that you ran super stocks. I mean, demo derby at Barnum Fair. I call that demo derby anyway. So Barnum still has a pretty big fair today for as small of a town as it is, and they still have some enduro stuff and racing going on at Barnum. But talk about that little demo derby experience that you had there.
Yeah. Well, my cousin actually owned the car, and we built the thing down there. It was a Cadillac Fleetwood. Anyway, and I was not, well, I guess I raced the same way as I drove a demo derby. I went there, crash, not necessarily with a stock car, but that was the idea with the demo anyway. But he was trying to talk me into playing possum, and I refused. And I ended up there was 69 cars when we started out that night, and I ended up being the last one running.
Nice. What do you remember what that paid?
Oh no, it wasn't much. The biggest thing, the only reason I won is the guy that was playing possum all night, and I was chasing him around, could never get him, and then finally I had him. Well, what happened was the car died. My car died, and we didn't have enough sense to take the neutral switch out for the automatic, and it wouldn't turn over. It wasn't hitting the switch anymore, so I couldn't get it to start. And he seen I was dead in the water, so he started hitting me, and he hit me so hard that it jolted the switch, and it started back up, and the rest was history.
It was just meant to be. That's awesome. So he said that back in the day, you won a track championship at the Proctor Speedway in a car that probably shouldn't have been on the racetrack, probably should have been on a showroom floor or something. And then there was a little bit of a deal with an engine out of your cousin's street car, and he got in trouble with his wife. Or what's the story there?
Well, the first car we raced, yeah, me and Jim. Anyway, like I say, none of us had ever been in the pits, so we didn't know what we were doing. Anyhow, we raced two tracks, Superior and Proctor, and back then in '72, that was really interesting because that was when they were starting. The features were 3 abreast. Proctor, can you imagine that? Yes.
How many cars?
I was 26, I think. I don't know. It was up there. I was sitting in the middle, smack dab in the middle center, going into number 1 turn. That is the scariest thought in my life. Either you're gonna get hit one way or the other. But they didn't have the invitationals, for more or Labor Day like they do now and all that stuff. But so Proctor ran Saturday and Sunday, and we blew a motor Sunday and Monday, excuse me. And I blew a motor again on Sunday night. And we went to our sponsor and drinking some beers at the bar he had there and talking about the motor. And he says, well, I got a motor in my wife's car. That'd probably run pretty good in there. Closed the bar and took his wife's car, went home and pulled the motor out and put it in the other. And that was the only check that we got all season running 2 tracks. We finished far enough up in the feature that we got a check for $15. That was our
nice.
grand total income for the year.
So they didn't pay all the way back then. They only paid the top few spots, or what?
Yeah, the pay down sure as hell wasn't very good, So anyway, yeah, and she didn't. She was looking for. He told her that that I was working on the transmission. He had a problem with it. So anyway, then she was looking for a car. We finally pulled the motor out, put it back in, and gave it back to her. She didn't find out about it for years later. Anyway,
How did she take it when she found out years later?
well, if you knew the woman, you'd probably understand. She's pretty nice about it, but she says, Dale, I found out what you did. But
Hey,
she took
that
the
right there, it's tougher to do that now with all these emissions and all that. But I mean, people got pickup trucks and whatever. So, hey, why not? If you're in a pier stock or whatever, if you blow up, take one out of your friend's car, whatever. Use the movie Six Pack. I mean, you can find a way for sure. So,
Yeah.
you had a car number 879, which was what, prefix for Cloquet? Is that what that was?
Yeah. Gary
How'd that come about, and how did you become number 79?
well, how did we become 79?
Yep.
When we were building the car in the first place, and we had to come up with a number. We called Jack Munter. We found out he had at Proctor, and he was given. I was inside the car doing some welding, and Jim was on the phone, and Jack was rattling off numbers that were available, and first one, one was 69, and I said, "There's no way in hell I'm gonna be 69 anyway. I'm not gonna, there's too many jokes involved with that number, son."
Rich Zillow didn't care.
Yeah, first one. Well, as far as racing goes, you can read it either way, whether it's on its roof or on its wheels. That's it. And then he said 79 is available. I says, "Hey, that sounds good. Good enough." That's how it came about.
Nice. Well, how the 879 ever happened then?
Well, that was Jerry L. He was president of the association at Proctor, and for I don't know,
Long time.
for a few years there.
Yeah.
Anyway. But when I went to, in the spring they used to have people to try to get people to come and help, get the track ready. And I volunteered and showed up and was working there all day long. And Jerry yelled, I don't know, he says, you're one of them 879ers, and that's all started.
So he actually started along with Crash and Todd started the Silver 1000, right?
Well, Jerry, I'm not sure. It was Crash and Todd. That was one. There's one guy that put in a lot of hours on that racetrack. Free. Todd.
Right.
Todd Signs.
Yep.
Yeah. I was really impressed with that dude. Like I say, I'd go up there and help picking rocks or whatever the heck you had to do, And
yeah, I did that as a kid in Hibbing.
He was there all the time with his equipment. He was a pretty neat guy.
Another guy that put in a lot of time at Proctor Speedway and now Superior is Gus Olmanson. Involved in every aspect. I heard you had a little stint in one of Gussie's cars.
Yeah, my buddy Gus. Yeah, there's another one of those deals that I didn't. I don't know. My car was broke down. I didn't have any money, I guess, whatever. And I hooked up with Gus, and perhaps I can't think of that guy's name. He died anyway. It was one that Gus was running with one night, and all of a sudden, next thing I knew, I was driving his car, and we built another one and with the intention. But Gus couldn't drive because he had that broken leg, And he says, "You're going to drive." I said, "That's cool, I guess."
You had a worst to first deal in that, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. At Proctor, yeah. The heat race we crashed. Grierson and I can't remember who the heck it was. Anyway, got turned around and ended up. It took the upper A out, ball joint and everything, and it went into the header tubes, flattened them out. And then I took a torch and cut one off. And then Gus says, "Well, I got ball joints and everything." Turned out he had brand new ball joints, but he had the wrong ones. Dick Chrisman was parked right next to me, and the guy that was pitting for him, he says, "Well, Dick's got ball joints. He can give you one." And of course, Dick looked at me like, "Do I have to?" Anyway, the guy was one of his sponsors. So anyway, he gave me a ball joint and put in. We got it together, and I had to cut a tube off. It sounded like a John Deere tractor going around the racetrack. You can imagine, tube cut off right at the head. And yeah, I started last because we didn't finish the heat. And I caught Dick on he was leading on the last lap, and I really didn't think I was going to pass him, but his transmission went out just as we coming out of number 4 on his car. And I was pushing him down the straightaway, and I realized that all of a sudden I pulled off to the side and went by him. Of course, after the race, and I won. And we pulled in the pits, and Dick says, "All I could think of is, there goes my damn ball joint."
Hey, he raced this past weekend. Did you see that?
Yeah.
Back behind the wheel. So when are we going to get Dale Carlson back behind the wheel then?
That's a stretching imagination.
Let's get a label.
Dick, me and Dick, it seems like we were always competing. I don't know why, but it just seemed like for whatever position it was. One night, no kidding, one night at Proctor, and I don't know if we ended up in a dead heat for the feature.
Really?
Really.
If you're competing with him, that means you're doing something right because you were in the front, because he was always in the front.
Yeah, he won a lot of races.
And and we should have won a lot more with Gus's car, especially, and then a lot of other ones too. But I just it was one of those years when things, when you don't want it to happen, it does. You know how that goes. But,
for sure.
But there's Dixon, and now what he said when we tied, and they didn't have anything set up for any of it, so they decided to just take first place money and second place money and put it together and split it.
Yep.
And Dick said, "Well, when they got done paying us, he said, well, if I'd known that, I would have took second place. That paid more money."
Nice. Hey, another guy that you drove for, which is a legendary family in the Twin Ports for sure, is the Eliason family. Talk a little bit about that stint.
Well, yeah, it was another one of those years. I didn't have no money and no car. Anyway, and I was talking to Gordy. We became friends somehow between Gus and everything, Eliason. And he says, "How would you like to drive late model?" And I'm sitting there like, okay, we're sitting at a bar, right? And I'm like, yeah, right. I says, yeah, I would like to. I mean, really. But he says, we got that old Bemco chassis sitting there right in my way at the shop. That was the one that George and Jim had the year before, or whatever it was. I can't remember. 2 years before. Anyway, and he says, I think I'm going to talk to Harry and John, and I'm going to see if you're willing to work and put it together and get everything. I says, yeah, I'm willing to work. And that's how that came about. John and Harry Elias, and they actually owned the car. And they talked to me one day, and next thing I knew, I was in.
That's a family. that was a big racing family right there. And of course, Chase Eliason down working for, what is it, Hendricks, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a kid that was a go-getter, you know, when, you know, of course I hadn't know the whole family real well, but I mean, he I was at the racetrack one night when I suppose he was probably, I don't know, 10, 13, whatever the heck he was. He's always a short kid, you know, but he had his old coveralls rolled up to his knees or whatever, and comes flying underneath the car. He says, "You need some help?" He was always willing to do stuff.
He pitted for Darrell for quite a while. And
Yeah.
then
He did. Yeah, he did. Super good kid. I mean, everybody liked Chase for sure.
Yeah. Still is. Yep. Good
Yeah.
guy.
Yep.
That's what he
So
says.
you guys raced, you and Kevin raced against each other. When did you decide, Dale, that, you know, I'm just going to go ahead and watch my boy race now? When did that come about?
When he ran out of money.
Yeah. When did that, you mean when I finally quit?
Yep.
Yeah, I just, it was just one of those years, and another one that, you know, I had a car, but I didn't have a motor, and and
Jim ended up building a motor
but
for it, and it didn't.
yeah,
Kept blowing up, and
I couldn't keep a motor in it, and I just decided, well, and actually, that was about the time that I was the job business that was coming off the rail down at Potlatch. So I don't know.
Sappy bought all Potlatch.
Oh yeah, yep.
Where he worked, so.
And I was involved with that, so that changes a lot of things.
It sure does. It sure does. Well, do you enjoy? How does it compare watching Kevin race versus being out there yourself?
It's gotten better. The only thing is, like last year is the first year that I haven't been in the pits in 50 years. Let's put it that way. And I couldn't because of health reasons. I wouldn't be in that. I'd be more of in the way than anything. But anyhow, it's, you know, when he's racing, I'm trying to figure out if it's him or the car.
Probably me more.
But you know, and I can't wait till he gets off and tells me what's going on. So I tried to sit in the grandstand, and you can't find out anything up there. So
I feel your pain, man. I feel your pain, because when I watch a race now, I can't watch a race without critiquing somebody or something, or I just can't watch it for the pure enjoyment of watching it. I'm always trying to, like, who can I talk to? What can I do to make their car better? Not always the way it works, but I definitely try. So it's, I kind of miss it myself. I got to be honest with you. What, is there anything else that stuck out? Like, as far as memories that just kind of, you know, you get lit up about when you think about, what are any other fondest memories that you might have?
Well, one thing I was going to say is when you're racing your son, you know, especially when he first started running late ball, and I was out there and we were in the same race, you know. Anyhow, I was critiquing him going into the turns. I was chasing him, you know, and you know what I did? I said, "What the hell is he doing?" And I was watching him so much, I did the same damn thing.
Oh boy,
you know?
yeah, that's not good.
Yeah, I was like, "What are you doing, Dale?" I guess one thing that stands out in my mind, I guess, in a kind of a way, is Cedar Lake. One night we was down there racing, and if you can compete down there with the boys, you know, you're doing pretty good, I think, anyhow. And it was a race that the car was ideal for the track anyway. And I was trying to pass Joe Kreideman for I don't know how many laps, and matter of fact, that was before the headrests and all that stuff. And the car, you pulled so many G's there when they're really fast that I actually ended up, my neck was so damn sore, I couldn't hold my head up. And that's crazy.
Yeah, Cedar Lake, it's like you're going in a circle for sure. I know exactly what you're talking about because I raced there before the headrests as well, and I know what you're talking about.
If the car's going good and you're going fast, it happens. I found out anyway.
Absolutely. Well, Kevin, let me ask you, what's the plans for 2023 here?
I'm going to run a lot this year. Well, as long as the hauler keeps pulling the car and the motor holds together in the car, but I'm going to run a lot. I've already run 4 shows. I got the old, I went and bought another 07 Rocket like I had before at the end of last year, and I'm kind of going through it right now, trying to get it to do what I want it to do. But we're planning on running just about every night, especially around here. Unless something, drastic happens, like I say, I lose a motor or something like that. But, yeah, that's the plan. We're going to run, Grand Rapids and, Superior and, Hibbing and Proctor every night pretty much. And, a couple other ones in between. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I'll wear out. I don't know.
I feel your pain.
Yeah. It's been a while. 2019 is the last time I ran. I think I ran 55 shows that year. And at the end of that deal, I was toast. I mean, I was, my body was beat up and I was tired. But I'm going to try to do something similar to that. So that was a pretty good year. So
now
we'll see what happens.
I do got to ask you one question. So Dale, how much crap did you give Kevin when his car fell off the trailer?
Oh man.
Yeah.
Had to bring that up.
Yeah, I was just
so like, now you got to tell the story, Kevin, because I don't think Bert's ever heard this. So
all right.
You had a really good hot rod that year too, actually.
Yeah. So we that was a pretty good car I had. It was an 07 Rocket, and we had won quite a few races with it. And that week, we went to Rapids and we won. And then we took Friday off, or Superior didn't have late models or something. And then we went to Hibbing and we won the Race of Champions qualifier. And Bravo, I had 2 guys with me. I had my pitman Mike and his dad Scott, and they were pretty happy. And Bravo came over and says, "Hey, you're having a good week. Got the guy's name now. Number 90 used to race. We went over to he's having a get together. He's having a fire, and he wanted to. Bravo said, come over and stop for a couple beers before you head home. Celebrate your wins. Seemed like a good idea, So we go over there, and my pit crew, they were having a really good time. And I was taking it easy because the next day we had the twin 25s at Proctor. That's when they're still at Proctor. And so, we had a few beers. Bravo goes, instead of going back the other way, just keep going this way and head over to County Road 16 and take that way out. He goes, it's a little rough, but it's shorter. But all right, well, so me and the guys pile in the car or in the truck and start down the road. And I should have known that it was going to be pretty rough because there was a sign, one of the big orange construction signs said, originally it said road with some bumps, and somebody took a marker and put bumps with a little bit of road or something. They wrote on the sign. I'm like, oh, that ain't good. So we get going down the road, and this road is rough. And I'm like, what the world? You couldn't go over 50. everything was bouncing. And, you know, we got going along, and the boys, you know, they had a few too many beers, and they're like, Kev, you got to pull over. We got to take a leak, you know. And so I said, yeah, well, I got to see if the car's all right. God, that road is ridiculous, you know. So they get out, I get out, and I go back to which I do quite often, go back and check the car. And I get back there, and there's no car, just an empty trailer. I'm like, that is not good. And I go, guys, you got to get in the truck. We lost the tweaking car off the trailer. And Mike's like, yeah, whatever. He didn't believe me. And I'm like, no, you got to get in the truck. He's trying to finish with his business there. You know, he's trying to get done taking a leak, and he's kind of running alongside the truck, and he jumps in, and cars are going by, and I got all this stuff running through my head, you know, like, where's the car? Did it go through a house? There's cars going by. Did it run into another car? You're thinking the worst, you know. So I whipped the truck and trailer around, and now I'm going like 80. And I don't even think the trailer was even touching the pavement because it was so rough. And I flew by that first car, and I got going, and all of a sudden Mike yells out, there it is. And we look up, and it's about 10, 15 feet in the air and sideways in a pine tree, like a 60-foot pine tree. So it rolled through the ditch, flew up Dukes of Hazzard style, and ended up in the pine tree. I'm like, oh my God, you know. And Mike is like, what are we gonna do? He says, you got to call a wrecker. I says, well, I've had a couple beers. You guys have had a lot of beers, and I'm not calling the wrecker because, you know, they'll call the boys and they're gonna be mad at us because, you know, all the DMV thing and all that. So I'm like, well, I'm gonna pull it out with the winch on the trailer. He's like, that ain't gonna pull it. I said, well, we're gonna try. So we pulled up, and I stretched out. I have a lot of cable on my winch, and I waded through that ditch. It was half full of water. It was up to my waist in water. That was pretty cold. I waded through that, and I hooked up to the car, and I started winching. I thought I was gonna pull the box right off the trailer. It was winching away, and it finally pulled it out of the tree and pulled it back down through the ditch, and we got it up on the road. And the front bumper was actually underneath the front tires. The tires weren't even touching the ground. They were about 6 inches off the ground. That's how bad the bumper was pushed under the car.
Oh,
Like, oh my God. So we got it on the trailer and backwards, and we couldn't strap it down, so we pulled the whole front end off. And we rolled it back off 2:00 in the morning. Them guys are out directing traffic. People are driving by like, what in the world is going on out here? You couldn't even see your hand in front of your face. It's so dark. But we ended up getting it back on the trailer, and I got home about 4:30 in the morning. And my wife was wondering, where the hell were you? You said I called her right before we left at midnight that I was coming home, and 4 hours later, you know, I finally pull in, and she didn't believe me that the car fell off the trailer and went into the woods. So she went outside, and there was no front end on it.
oh
And
boy.
I ended up staying up that day. And I started making phone calls and trying to get parts at early in the morning. Dave Essie had a bumper, and guys were, you know, I had to keep hoofing on it, try to get it ready for the Twin 25s. And some people, Troy Powers, I think he posted on Facebook something about Kevin's on a roll this week, 2 wins, and then he texted me, good job, blah blah, you're on a roll. And I'm like, yeah, I'm on a roll, all right. The car rolled off the trailer and it rolled into the woods, and he thought I meant it flipped a few times, you know. So it was all going nuts on Facebook, and everybody's calling me and texting me and wondering what's going on. And we pulled into the park at the Twin 25s, and there's like 30 people standing around the car. And they're like, this doesn't look that bad. I'm like, well, it isn't. It didn't roll over, you know. So, but yeah, so we got the car ready. We got it done. And I think we ended up 3rd and 10th, and 3rd in the first feature and 10th in the second feature. So, yeah, we had a good night. We had a good week other than, you know, car falling off the trailer.
Yeah, that's a really good week. I mean, obviously the highlight for everybody other than you was the car falling off the trailer. But yeah, that's So did Dad give you a little bit of crap there?
Yeah, a little. He didn't say too much. He knew I was already, you know, pretty bummed out. I mean, what an idiot. You got to win 2 races in a row and you wreck a perfectly good race car, bringing it home. I mean, that's just stupid, But he said a little bit, and then he's like, he just trying to figure out what the heck happened, I wasn't even fully sure. We broke a strap is what happened. Broke the one strap and the other one pulled out of the ratchet. But
have you taken that road since?
No. I know I haven't. I know Bravo went and put a sign up in the tree or something. I don't know. Kevin was here, or I don't know. But
nice.
Yeah, so I've not taken that road since. I think it's not bumpy anymore, but I know I pull in Grand Rapids every once in a while, and when I pull in, hey, you got your car on the trailer, and everybody likes to joke about it.
So we need to figure out where you're parking and plant a pine tree.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I tell you what, guys, a pleasure talking to both of you. Thanks for joining us on here. Dale Carlson, Kevin Carlson, great visiting with you guys as always. Look forward to seeing you this summer. Good luck this weekend. Any closing thoughts before you guys sign off?
Well, this is Dale. Anyway, there's one thing I wanted to say is I think everybody that raced remembers one of their first nights out. But when I was running late model, when the first night out with that late model, let's put it this way. Super stocks then, and that's what I'd been driving up to that point, had, I had a small V8 with a 2-barrel carburetor. That was the rule, and all that good stuff. And I went from that to a 512 big block in that late model. And I was like, holy, when I stepped on that thing the first time, I was like, whoa, this is racing now. And that was in Superior. And my very first heat race, we went into number 1 turn, and I was in the back, and everything got crossed up, and I didn't stop in time, and I lifted Slammer's car. I went underneath him and lifted him up in the air, and luckily we didn't hook up, and he came off. But you know how it is when you run into somebody and they want to know who the hell it was. We were going down the back chute. He was going slower. And we really weren't prepared to race. I didn't have the clutch pedal fell off when we got to the racetrack, so I didn't have a clutch. And we were having problems with the brakes and stuff. It was one of those things, first night out.
Sponsored by Lake Clutch Brake.
Yeah.
Right.
But I didn't want to pull up alongside him at all, but I finally had to. Slammer looked over, you ever seen Evil Eye, Slammer Eye?
He was feisty.
Oh, man. That was the last person I wanted to crash in my first race, but whatever. It made it interesting anyhow. So I survived the night and then it ended up in the feature, and I can't remember where the hell we finished, but we did anyway. I just had to tell you that.
So Bert Slammer, Steve Eggersdorf, and the most famous incident he has in Hibbing was giving the track worker a ride around the racetrack on the hood of his car after a call that he didn't like. So, yeah, he's not a guy that you wanted to make angry for sure. Well, guys, hey, thanks for jumping on, and I'm sure I'll see you this summer. I'll stop down and say hi. Look forward to seeing you guys. And Kevin, keep the car on the trailer and park in Victory Lane here this weekend.
Yeah. Thanks for doing the show, guys. It's something for me to listen to when I'm working on the car in the garage. So keep it up.
Well, thank you.
All right. Thanks, bud.
This has been a good day because I got informed this afternoon I'm getting into the Hall of Fame in Superior this year.
Well deserved. Congratulations on that. That's awesome.
That surprised the hell out of me.
And with Dick Wilhelm, who was another 79. So just
there you go. Well, heck, I completely see. I don't know much about Dick Wilhelm, but there you go, Bert. He threw out a 79 for us. Dick Wilhelm, he raced Superior mostly. Did he race Proctor too?
Yeah, some, yeah.
Yeah.
And his
Okay.
kid race, I remember him, Rick Wilhelm.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, there you go. There's one that slipped by. They threw one in there for us. So, all right, guys. Well, hey, you guys have a good night. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
See ya.
All right, Bert. So that was kind of fun. Old Dale Carlson there, 79. Kevin Carlson out there. He's still making laps in the late model. Going to run a lot this year. So, who do you got? Who do you have for a 79?
I only have one, and he raced in the sportsman / limited late model division, and that would be Gary Yonke. Really don't have many stories about him, but he was one of the limited late model drivers who was there every week when those guys ran at the track.
Okay, so I have a handful, and a couple of them I have a little info on, a couple of them I don't. But Chad Chenoweth, I remember him as number 7. I was looking online, all of a sudden I see a 79. It says Chad Chenoweth. Picture from the 1996 Gopher 50. He was a 1995 modified champion at Huron. Won races in street stocks, modifieds, late models. His dad, of course, Orville Chenoweth, has been the promoter at the Dakota State Fair Speedway in Huron, South Dakota for as long as I can remember. Took a couple years off doing a few shows a year, including this coming weekend. Chad, he raced a show or two here and there over the last few years, but it's really been probably 14, 15 years since he's been full time. But Chad Chenoweth from out in Huron, South Dakota. Another one I have, modified ace, Sean Nolan, Central Minnesota. I remember the Nolan family. Skip Nolan, of course, French Lake Auto Parts, sponsored a ton of race cars around Wilmer, around that area. I actually raced against Sean Nolan. He drove a super stock for Steve Polich, but he ran with Soda, IMCA, won a bunch of races in the 79 car. Another guy that I have here, Bert, this guy I got to know pretty good, Dale Lindell, a driver from just west of Bemidji, Minnesota. Super nice guy. Ran a super stock against him in my early years. Me, him, Dan Sadek, Gary Nelson Jr. It was kind of us four battling for the wins in the early 90s, 93, 94 over at the Bemidji Speedway. I had a stint. I actually went to college, even got a couple credits, spent my first student loan money on a race engine. Mom didn't know, Dad did, just to point that out. But while I was going to school there, I wanted to get down to the Wissota 100 in Cedar Lake. I actually rode down there with Dale Lindell and got to know him pretty well. He hasn't raced for quite a few years, but a super nice guy, and was almost a good runner when he raced. Another guy that I know him. I mean, I know him a little bit, but I don't know him well. A Hibbing driver from the legendary 6-cylinder class there that they had, Dale Davidson. I recall him being pretty tight with the Vessel clan over in Hibbing, the Kittners, the Vessels. Super nice guy, really tall, always had good looking stuff. And I think he was kind of just a conservative driver out there in the 6-cylinder division. He still makes it over to the racetrack every now and then. Last I heard, he's racing in vintage snowmobiles, was the last I heard. So he's still getting after it, racing against my dad back in the day. Another guy, one last guy that I have here, super stock driver from Esco, Race Superior, Hibbing, Proctor, was Eric Nelson. He always had pretty good looking hot rods, ran pretty well, kind of around a 5th to 7th place car. I think he snuck a couple wins in there. I still see his mom at the races from time to time, probably his dad too, but Eric Nelson, it's probably been a decade or so since he's been behind the wheel. So, Bert, a little bit of trivia for you here, brought to you by our friends at buyraceshirts.com. So if you need hats, shirts, hoodies, apparel, you name it, whatever you need, check out buyraceshirts.com for racers, by racers. They do a really good job. So, Bert, 1979 East Bay Winter Nationals. Which of these drivers, if you can name 2, we'll call it a win. So there was 3 events, all won by separate drivers. And I'm going to give you some names, and you tell me which 3 of these drivers you think won the features at East Bay in 1979. Ronnie Johnson, John Gamble, Doug Kennemer, Charlie Schwartz, Ty Long, Freddie Smith, Mike Duvall, Buck Simmons, Larry Moore.
Freddie Smith.
No.
Duvall.
No.
Gamble.
John Gamble won one. Yes.
I forgot the other drivers.
The other two drivers that won, Ty Long and Buck Simmons. Figure I'd throw you a little curveball there.
Buck Simmons,
So I got
number 41.
number 41. 1979 Red Clay Classic, Ashland, Wisconsin. Who won the late model feature? I'm going to give you some clues here, Bert. Okay. His brother also had a great career in the late model division.
I'll just A. McMahon.
Nope. And I'll let you get 3 wrong answers, and then I'll give you it.
Eggersdorf.
Nope, that's 2. Let me give you a couple clues. He also raced in the winged modified division at the Cedar Lake Speedway.
That's not going to help me.
There is a prominent Wissota postseason special named after his father.
The only one I can think of is Punky Manners. That's special.
Remember Russ Larson, the Russ Larson Classic at Superior?
Yeah, okay, yes, okay.
So this driver's no longer with us. I'm talking about Brent Larson, who was the 02, of course, brother of Steve Larson, who won about everything known to man up in Wissota country. So Brent Larson, winner of the 1979 Red Clay Classic. 1979 Silver 1000 Proctor, Minnesota, who won the late model feature. I'll give you a couple clues here, and I'll let you get 2 wrong answers before I give it. This driver is from north of the border.
Tom Nesbitt.
Nope. This driver was the guy to beat before Nesbitt. This driver is a prominent, or was, maybe is or was a prominent businessman up in Thunder Bay. The sponsor on the side of the car, Uncle Frank's Supper Club, on one of them I remember, and I believe his number was 97.
I do not know.
John Jones. So John Jones was the man before Tom Nesbitt was the man. All right, Bert. World 100 history time. 1979 World 100 Eldora Speedway, Roxburgh, Ohio. Larry Moore won the feature. But a Wisconsin driver finished 18th in that main event. Name that driver.
Roger Regas.
Ding, 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 ding. All right, Bert got her. All right. 1979, the inaugural Labor Day shootout at the Hibbing Raceway. Gary Grierson, as Dale Carlson mentioned Grierson, that was Gary Grierson, won the Superstocks. My friend Dodie Evenson won the 6-cylinder division. The late model division went to who? I'll give you a clue. Primarily, one of the primary tracks for this driver, the Red Cedar Speedway in Menominee, Wisconsin.
What year?
1979.
Oh, obviously 79. I'll say Prochnow.
Nope. He has the coolest number known to man.
'71, huh?
There you go. There you go.
Oh, Leon Plank.
Leon Plank. Ding, 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 ding. And last but not least, 1979. What was the most noteworthy thing to happen in the racing world in 1979?
Oh, that's the Daytona 500.
Specifically?
Well, specifically, that's the Daytona 500 that kind of put NASCAR on the map. But yeah, there was Cale Yarborough and Donnie Allison duked it out with their cars on the backstretch, and then Bobby Allison and Cale Yarborough duked it out on the infield at 3 and 4. And that's the race that put NASCAR on the map, because that was the first live green to checkered flag ever televised. And the Midwest got hit by a huge snowstorm, so a lot of people watched it because they had nowhere else. They couldn't go anywhere, so they and back then you only had 3 channels to watch, so a lot of people saw that race because of that.
That was 1979. So spot on, some fun trivia there, Bert. And of course,
hey, last week I said I'd have Channel Speedway tidbit for this. So 1979 was the first year that Channel Speedway had 2 divisions of racing.
Prior to that, they only had 1?
Yes, they only had late models prior, well, coupes, and then late models when they switched over to late models. But 1979 they officially added a hobby stock division, and I think those cars raced occasionally in prior years, but 79 was the first year that they declared a track champion. And how the hobby stock division originally got started at Channel Speedway was car counts were dwindling a little bit, and spectator attendance was dwindling a little bit. So they invited drivers from the local ice racing clubs to bring their cars and race, and they called it the hobby stock division.
And well, that's cool. That's a nice little piece of history right there.
And Mike Pannier from Green Bay was the first official champion in the hobby stock division at Channel Speedway.
Nice. Any pictures of that car by chance? Can you dig anything up?
I can look. I know I have one somewhere because he raced like a Hornet or something. It was a different style car. I'll see if I can find it.
Nice. Well, sounds good. Well, I hope you all enjoyed the show. We sure had a heck of a lot of fun, kind of turning back the clock a little bit, talking to Dale Carlson. Congratulations, Dale Carlson, on being inducted into the Hall of Fame at the Gondik Speedway. Long overdue, much deserved. I remember watching him for many, many years. And of course, his son, Kevin, a great racer as well. Looking forward to seeing him in Victory Lane this year. And Bert, always fun talking racing. Hopefully everybody enjoyed the show. Down in the comments here, post your favorite 79s, maybe some stories, maybe post in there, 80s coming up. Who do you have for an 80? Who should we talk about next week? So as always, I'm Ryan Aho. That is the Bert Lehman. Thanks for tuning in to the Blast to the Past episode of the One to Go Show.